1993 and 1994 covering early Windows games will have 2 episodes each, so this second is the last for 1993. There just weren't many games in the first 2 years that would not fall under educational or card category, and I also didn't want to include absolute stinkers, so there's that. 1995 will have a lot more and the next few years even more so. So let's close 1993 today and look forward to the next few. Putt-Putt Goes to the Moon is a point-and-click adventure aimed at the very young audience. Content-wise, 4 to 8-year-olds seem to be the target. While Putt-Putt's visiting the fireworks factory, Pep slips and accidentally sends them both skyrocketing to the moon. Out there, Putt-Putt must find and acquire all the pieces of the rocket ship to get them both back to Earth. While the game is very simple adventure title, simple enough for preschoolers to understand and complete, some of the added arcade minigames are incredibly difficult compared to the rest of it. It's an unfitting, odd choice, but it is what it is. So while the game is really kid-friendly, colorful and free of any not safe for work moments, it's hard to recommend it really, because of it being so uneven. So yeah. Quantum Gate is an interactive movie type of a game, with an emphasis on the movie rather than the game. It's a first-person action adventure taking place on a distant planet that's in a war with aliens in the not-so-distant future of 2057. You play as Private Drew Griffin, an army medical student sent off on a secret mission to said planet. There you'll discover that the advanced simulation predicted that the Earth will stop being able to sustain life in 5 years, at least not in the same capacity it did before, all because of the pollution and industrialization. From then, it's a snowball effect to extinction. That's sadly not that far off. You will also learn that you're a part of so-called Eden Initiative, a project aimed at stopping this process before it's too late. And it's pretty much all I'll tell you about the story, cause it's actually pretty good, with couple of "oh no they didn't" moments and even a very big and mind-blowing ending. But what I can tell you about is the gameplay. That's linear, same as in movies, and interrupted by a conversation with characters and some very basic action sequences. I have very mixed feelings about Quantum Gate, because while it's outstanding as an interactive movie with an interesting and deeper than it has any reason to be story and thought-provoking message, the gameplay itself is rather lacking. Given how fun and touching the story is, especially near the end of it, I have no choice to recommend Quantum Gate despite my reservations. Especially that compared to all other FMV-based titles released in 1993, it's a masterpiece. Quenzar's Caverns is a minuscule single-player turn-based dungeon-crawling RPG. In short, you're Batman. Well, not really him, as it would have meant that you're sitting behind me munching on something religiously and playing some kind of a gacha game on your phone, but Batman as in true hero, a savior, a good guy to defeat the evil. And you decided to do just that, find and kill evil wizard Quenzar, who is plotting to take over and rule the kingdom. While the game world is randomly created at each playthrough, the map is always 10 by 10 square, with each cell being a different room. Your main task is obviously to find the evil wizard, but to do so you have to find the key for his lair, and additional helpful equipment traversing the rooms and fighting monsters. So basically, to summarize, what you need to do is gather enough resources, find the key, locate the stairway to the wizard's lair, and defeat him. Simple as that. But most rooms, other than the monsters, also have searchable objects like desks, hidden doors, pools of water, etc. And these can contain anything from potions and scrolls through rings and armor, to weapons and even a little of team, hand grenades. Sometimes, if you're lucky, even a special items like a compass of guiding that always directs you towards the golden key and entrance to Quenzar's lair. Given how small the game is and that it can be completed in under an hour if you know what you're doing, it's really amazing how much content was packed in. It's also an excellent game to just fire off while having a snack or just killing time. Quest for Glory Shadows of Darkness, same as its predecessors, is once again a mix between point-and-click adventure and role-playing. You can import the character from previous outing or create a new one, and it can be either a fighter, thief, magician or a paladin. The game starts with you being mysteriously teleported from a tavern you were having a time of your life in, into mysterious land of Mordavia, inspired by the Eastern European medieval kingdoms. But you don't land in a castle, forest, town or even at an empty wheat field. Oh no, your life would be way too easy then. You will find yourself stripped of everything in a dark cave seemingly in the middle of nowhere. Believe it or not, but your quest will not be for glory, but to figure out what kind of darkness overtook the land outside of the main city's gates. As in all the previous games, an adventure and a half awaits you, and if you love either point-and-click games or light RPGs, you'll love this installment in Quest for Glory series too. Skills, as per usual, improve upon use, and it's worth working on them as they may end up being required to solve some of the puzzles. Combat system has been modernized quite considerably and is now real-time side view, like in a simple fighting game. And you can move freely, defend, attack and jump during battles. Simply put, Quest for Glory is super fun. If you'll have a chance, grab it and play it. Shadowgate for Windows is a modernized version of the 1987's DOS classic. It's an adventure game set in a fantasy world where you're sent off to the ancient keep of Shadowgate on a quest to find the mysterious artifact known as the Staff of Ages, and also stop evil warlock from summoning the powerful and deadly demon Behemoth. I always thought it was Baphomet, but clearly I was wrong. The keep itself is filled with various monstrosities, mythical and demonic alike, and full of traps to stop any and all adventurers stupid enough to try to stand in the warlock's way. Since you're gonna be traveling through the dark and evil-filled fortress, it's crucial that you keep a source of light with you, at all times. If I wasn't clear, I meant at all times. I mean, you're not a man-bat, you don't own a bat cave, and had no prior chance to get accustomed with the overwhelming darkness. You're a day creature, a dayman. Hero or no hero, stay in the light, cause outside of it, death awaits. Come to think of it, death is actually everywhere. And Shadowgate is probably the game in which it's the easiest to die out of all the adventure titles that I've ever played. I mean, a single wrong click, a small decision, anything can kill you. And it will, so be careful, save often, and consider all possible outcomes of all smallest decisions that you'll make. Or don't play the game, one of the two. Windows's version of Civilization is basically one-to-one copy of DOS original with some slight quality of life improvements, like support of higher resolution, ability to move some windows, world map and status being the obvious ones, and slightly facelifted graphics. Perhaps not much, but it made for much more enjoyable gameplay in higher fidelity. And Sid Meier's Civilization is not only one of my most favorite series of games, but this first installment, despite gamers' personal preferences, is arguably one of the most important games in the whole history of gaming. I don't think there's anyone who haven't heard about, or at least have a passing knowledge of Civilization, but just to be on the safe side, I'll try to explain. The simplest way of describing what it is to try to comprehend the encompassing meaning of the word itself. Because that's what the game is. It tells a story, or more appropriately, you design with your action and choices the story of your own nation. From prehistoric times to the future, through all the eras in between. So you'll build and expand cities, deciding what buildings and units should be produced in them. You'll exploit natural resources, expand into wider areas, explore the unknown, and finally, exterminate any and all enemies if need arises. On top of that, you'll also be directly involved in deciding how your nation's technological progression should look like. You'll directly control all units, both during war and in peaceful time, and you'll be the one who'll lead your people to glory. Or failure. If any of that sounds interesting to you, you owe yourself to try this gem of a game. And since First Civilization is the easiest in the series, it's an ideal gateway drug to that just one more turn disease that so many of us suffer from. And there's no cure on the horizon. VR in Spectre VR is a clickbait, or buy-bait to be precise. There's nothing VR about it. Batman is more of a VR assistant to me than this game is VR whatever. Why? Cause he feels virtual to me as he's not doing his work, but he's at least actually here. You gotta trust me on that. Our contract does not let me show him on a video, I'm afraid. And Spectre VR is not VR. It does not mean that it's a bad game, however, quite the opposite if you manage to find a couple of others who have it and are willing to play it online. Because while it can be played locally with bots or in split screen mode, it really spreads its wings in online multiplayer. Having 8 people chase each other in different tanks, shooting various weapons in this futuristic simple filled and shaded wireframe graphics is amazing. And this is the main reason why the game failed. Because while it offered fun gameplay modes and honestly fulfilling gameplay, there weren't many people gaming online in 1993. And those that did, played Doom. Take a Break Pinball, aka Dynamics Pinball, is Sierra's take on pinball moved onto the Windows platform. It features 8 different tables based on Sierra's other famous games. So there's one based on Leisure Suit Larry, one on Nova 9, one on Adventures of Willy Beamish, one on King's Quest, and 3 on Space Quest series. And for the most part, they all don't look that bad and play adequately. Which, you know, in any other genre would be fine, but by 1993 we had a lot of amazing and not only good enough pinball games under DOS. Games like Pinball Dreams, Pinball Fantasies, or even Epic Pinball. And they were all leagues ahead in terms of everything: graphics, music and sound, complexity, and most importantly fun. So Take a Break Pinball did just that. Took a break from sales and stayed largely irrelevant, forgotten and obscure as no one cared about it when competition was so strong. Upon its release in 1993, the Chessmaster 4000 Turbo was the absolute best chess simulation on the market. And believe it or not, it's still a pretty damn solid game to this day. Easily good enough to beat me most of the times, and from time to time even Batman. Though he always blamed his losses on a heartburn or belly aches. Who knows, maybe it really is the case. Still, Chessmaster 4000, while having nothing turbo in its design other than being the first game in the series to use 32-bit executables, is a beautifully looking game. You can view the chessboard from above, under an angle, or in full 3D, and there's many custom sets if you like variety or just prefer a particular style of board and pieces. Chessmaster also features a library of 500 real-life historical famous games and knows and uses countless various opening moves. If you're someone who likes chess, you'll love it as numerous different difficulty levels allowed for playing the game at the challenge that you're most accustomed to, and you can also play online with others if that's your thing. Come to think of it, I actually don't know if online play would still work today as it was only over modem or LAN, but whether it does or doesn't, important thing is it's a great chess implementation that seasoned players would most definitely enjoy, and complete newbies can feel comfortable trying. The Dagger of Amon Ra, aka Laura Bow 2, is Roberta Williams' point-and-click adventure masterpiece and a sequel to earlier The Colonel's Bequest. And as sequels go, this is superior to first Laura Bow in every aspect. The story is better, the controls are streamlined and more user-friendly, the graphics are considerably upgraded, and even sounds and music are of much higher quality. The game is a true murder mystery, and it's not only perfectly written, but features interesting and deep cast of characters and captivating story. You play as Laura Bow, a newbie in a New York newspaper who's about to write a story about newest exhibit in Leelander Museum, an ancient and mystical titular dagger of Amon Ra. During the museum's opening celebrations, the dagger is stolen and a person is murdered. Laura wants to investigate and talks her way in just to be locked inside with the rest of the guests. This, however, is not the end and the murders will continue. And it's up to you, controlling Laura, to figure out who's responsible. Funny enough, there's not that much of a typical adventure game's puzzling in Dagger of Amon Ra, and while you'll be gathering items, they will be used as evidence or to solve the mystery. You'll explore the museum and question people inside, trying to find their motives, alibis, and most importantly, the killer. Batman's telling me to let you know that usually when you can't tell who the killer is, you're the killer. It's not the case here, but keep that in mind for the future. It may come in handy. He was, after all, world's greatest detective. The game clock advances as you play, usually triggered by specific situations and occurrences, and you must be constantly aware of it as some information or events may only be available in specific places and times. At the end of the game, Laura will be asked a series of questions by the coroner, and based on what you found out and deducted along your investigation, you may answer them correctly and pinpoint the killer. Which reminds me of a board game I played with a buddy of mine 2 weeks ago on Saturday. It's called The Detective, a Modern Crime board game, and it was hella fun. It places you in shoes of investigators working closely with FBI to solve a mystery that's composed out of 5 smaller cases. And only when you complete all 5, a whole story will unveil. We've done just the first chapter so far, but it was really cool. In all honesty, the board is virtually irrelevant in the game because most of it is actually played over it. So you go around the town gathering clues, questioning suspects, searching through databases, and even can use Wikipedia and Google search. Then you place pictures with your notes on a board if you have one, or table if you don't, and solve the case like they do in the movies. It's great. I really don't know why I said it all, you don't care about that. So, Laura Bow 2 The Dagger of Amon Ra is really fun, and if you like detective work, you'll love it. The even more incredible machine is a follow-up to the original game and a really fun puzzler. It features all of the 87 puzzles from the first title, 73 new ones and new parts for your mechanisms. I was enchanted by the first incredible machine when it came out, or when I got to play it to be precise, which was probably a year or two later. In essence, it's a collection of numerous levels with puzzle objective in each to complete. That has to be solved by use of limited in number items. So you arrange set objects all around the game screen to fulfill your required task. You're basically assembling a Rube Goldberg contraption to do so. And while most objectives are as simple sounding as put the basketball in a basket or turn on something, with each passing level completing them becomes more challenging. Especially that after a while some levels feature special conditions like different gravity or air pressure than that found on Earth. The Incredible Machine is just that, incredible. It's equally as enjoyable for a grown-up to stretch their brain muscle as it is for a kid to have fun coming up with imaginative, sometimes ridiculous contraptions that, while may not always work, are pretty much always fun to tinker with. And Windows version of the game is identical to the DOS one, just under Windows. The Greens is a mini-golf game for up to 4 players, and despite working in small window, it's a pretty fun one. The aim obviously is to complete each of the 18 included holes in as few shots as possible, or 5 holes in a shareware version. As you'd expect from a Windows release, all controls are mouse-based and pretty easy to understand, even if not the most user-friendly that I've seen in a genre. You have 8 strokes to complete each hole, and if you don't manage to do it within the limit, the game passes on to the next player anyway. It's a simple game, don't expect any bells and whistles, but if there's few of you and all you'll have available for whatever the reason is Windows 3.11 with a basic graphic card, then I could imagine worst way to spend your time. The Journeyman Project's devs claimed that it was the very first photorealistic game. It's hardly the case, but as games using FMV sequences go, it's actually incredible. Not because of their quality, which is pretty good but nothing out of ordinary, but because of the captivating plot that will take you to many different places in space and time. The year is 2318 and humanity is about to sign a historic peace with an alien civilization of symbiotry. It's a groundbreaking moment and one that will pave peaceful and prosperous future for our kind for centuries to come. Unfortunately, it seems that some unknown force is meddling with the timeline, changing events and affecting the future. So you're present. You, as a member of the team assigned to guarding the time vehicle, have to save the world and future once again. Come to think of it, I've witnessed you saving the world or universe even, but I'm not sure I've witnessed you fixing time. Perhaps it's the first one for both of us. So, you'll visit both past and future in many different time periods, trying to solve the mystery behind the changes and undo modifications made to the timeline. The Journeyman Project is a first-person adventure game filled with many high-quality FMV sequences, high-resolution pre-rendered graphics, all accompanied by a stellar CD-quality soundtrack and digitized voiceovers. It's a great example how amazing FMV games can be made that are not reliant on video gimmick only and can actually serve interesting and involving story that you'll be keen on seeing all the way through. Who Killed Sam Rupert Virtual Murder 1 is a first in a series of adventure detective games with digitized FMV graphics. In this first episode you play as police detective trying to solve the case of Sam Rupert's murder. He was a restaurant owner and has been found killed in his own establishment. So to figure out who did it, and especially that the higher-ups are giving you only 6 hours to solve it, just in time for the press conference, you will have to gather clues and interview witnesses looking for any details and try to work out which out of 8 suspects is responsible. Each action, big or small, takes certain appropriate amount of time to perform, and after 6 hours mark is passed, the case is over and you must attend the press conference and explain what you found out to be able to arrest the guilty person from a narrowed down list of 3 suspects. There are 3 separate and different endings depending on which out of 3 possible motives you'll find. Who Killed Sam Rupert sounds like a hella fun title, nearly identical to the board game I told you about a few minutes ago. So it should be great, right? Well, while the gameplay mechanics idea is sound, the limited number of different actions that you can take and rather simple plot makes it a mediocre game. It's not bad per se, it's just not something that you'll be talking about much after completing. The Magic Dev Virtual Murder 2 is the last game in the series that we'll talk about today. And same as with Who Killed Sam Rupert, it's a first-person adventure detective FMV romp. This time, however, an anthropologist was found dead in her apartment in an odd voodoo-like ritualistic murder. Even if not much, the devs had some time to polish the formula and make the game better. Did they though? Well, yes, they did. There's not much improvement, however, and it's just a smudge better. The plot is a bit more complicated, there's 12 possible suspects now instead of 8, you're limited to 6 hours to complete the investigation and present the suspect during press conference afterward. The changes are so minuscule that it'd be better if it was called Virtual Murder 1.5 and not 2.0. Batman's saying that the cases, like in these 2 games, he didn't even solve himself, he used to just send Robin to take care of him. So yeah, world's greatest sidekick and not even detective is all it takes to solve them. Sadly or not, depends on how you wanna look at it, the remaining 2 games in the series that came out later were not improved considerably either. So if you like these 2, you'll like the other, and if you didn't, then you won't. Simple as that. The Oregon Trail is one of the very first few roguelites. Yeah, I said it. And it is if you think about it. You're going from Independence, Missouri to Willamette River and Valley in Oregon, so you have to stock up on provisions so that they would last as long as possible, and then while traveling plan out your daily schedule, to take groups' needs into consideration, so how much they should eat, when to rest, etc. You'll also hunt, cross rivers, and react to various happenings, good or bad, that will without a doubt sooner or later befall upon your group. Oregon Trail is one of the most influential games in history of all gaming, and countless kids grew up with it, learning about stock management, hardships of colonial times, and infamous dice entry. Not many people realize, however, that in reality most of us saw either Oregon Trail Deluxe or Oregon Trail 2 growing up, rather than the first title, which compared to the other 2 is rather simplistic and poor in features. Windows version of the Oregon Trail conceptually is identical to Oregon Trail Deluxe. The only things that really changed are the graphics, which are now high color, high resolution, and the interface, which is much more ergonomic, user-friendly and easy to operate. But Windows, DOS or Apple II makes no difference. Oregon Trail is a fun game in any version. The software tool works as Star Wars Chess is basically a high-resolution battle chess with less smooth animation and much simpler wars-playing chess engine. One side plays as Rebellion while the other represents the Empire. The game sits in a very odd spot, where you have to fulfill a certain set of requirements to be able to enjoy it. For one, you have to love Star Wars more than anything in the world. and for 2 you have to either be new at chess or very bad at it. Other than that, the novelty of animations wears off quick after you've seen them all once or twice, and then you're left with a bad chess game with incredibly slow gameplay because of the choppy animated combat sequences. Uninvited is a first-person point-and-click horror adventure game. Windows port is easily the best looking out of all the versions that ever came out, but it shouldn't be a surprise as it came out 7 years after the original did. It features beautiful 256 colors high-resolution VGA graphics and comfortable Windows interface to drive the adventure. After you crashed your car trying to pass a mysterious dark figure while driving at night and eventually regained consciousness, you realized that your brother was missing. Given lack of any landmarks in the area other than the nearby dark, gloomy old mansion, you direct yourself towards it to find your sibling. It is evident that the mansion does or did belong to dark force of some kind, as it is now infested with the undead. If you've never had a chance to play Uninvited and love adventure games, especially those harder that have death looming from behind every corner, you'll love Uninvited. It creates an overarching atmosphere of fear, loneliness and impending doom, going through this unfriendly and uninviting mansion, fighting for your lives with each step, all to save your brothers. Windtrek is another of those early shareware hidden gems. It's a Star Trek game, but not really, since it has no official license. So all the races you would have known from the show have slightly changed names so that they would stay within the legal grey zone. In short, expect to meet Romites instead of Romulans, Klingons instead of Klingons, and Fergans instead of Ferengi, to name a few. And you're not part of the United Federation of Planets, but just United Planets. The game features rather un-Star Trek-like scenario too, where rather than seeking peace and resolution to conflict, or even more so scientific discovery, you have to defeat the other alien races. It doesn't mean that it's a bad game, cause it's not, it's just not very Star Trek-y for the lack of a better word. Still, all the other usual series tropes are here, so your ship is armed with phasers and photon torpedoes, and it has a shield and both impulse and warp drives. Windtrek is played in grid universe where you warp between the sectors, locating planets and hunting ships. You can only warp to the nearby sector, and cannot plot long jumps all at once. All of the ship's subsystems can be damaged, and when they are, you have to get to the safe sector to repair them. And by safe, I mean one without any enemies. Windtrek is a simple strategy game with Star Trek-y theme. If you like this and don't mind some obvious inconsistencies with source material, it can be quite fun for a little while. So, what do you think? There weren't many games released in 1993 for Windows, but that's to be expected as it was not really a platform suitable for gaming yet. It will be a bit better in 1994, and we'll see a full lift-off in 1995 with Microsoft's release of Windows 95 with DirectX libraries. That's something to come in a future episode though. For now, let me know what you think. Did I miss a game that's your particular favorite, or maybe a title that deserved covering and was somehow overlooked? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below. If you didn't, well then there's thumbs down there too. But I suppose you wouldn't have persevered up to this point if you really didn't. Around 60% of you are not subscribed, and there's currently no way of knowing if YouTube will decide to recommend you the next episode or not, other than subscribing and hitting that bell, that is. And when you hit that bell, whenever the new video is out, YouTube will actually send you a small and friendly notification about it, so you wouldn't miss it. If you'd like to support the channel, Patreon and YouTube memberships are a great way of doing so. They will help me release better content, and also they get first dibs on all new videos before they're publicly accessible on YouTube. If you can't or don't want to do that though, likes and subscribes are great too. I would like to take a moment here and thank all the YouTube creators from whose videos short bits were taken to serve as a background to my commentary. They're amazing and stars among the retro community. You will find names of their channels at the top of the screen when their footage is running, and also in the video description below. For me though, this is all, so have a good one and I'll see you next time. Peace.